Welcome back. Netflix is facing boycotts and backlash for releasing Cuties on its platform. And now even some members of Congress are calling for the Justice Department to investigate. So what is Cuties? Well, it is a French film that won accolades at the Sundance Film Festival. It follows an 11-year-old girl who rebels against her conservative family and joins a dance troupe. Some say it sexualizes young girls because there are scenes of suggestive dancing, even twerking. But Netflix is countering, saying it's a powerful story about the pressure young girls face on social media and from society, and it's actually a commentary against the sexualization of them. So let's bring in two people who have made a career out of advocating for children right here in Houston. We're talking about Dr. Bob Sanborn, the CEO of Children at Risk, a child advocacy group, and also the CEO of Crime Stoppers, Rania Mankarious. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here.
Morning, Sally. Nice to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, let's just start off with getting some of your opinions, because there are advocacy groups that have released statements saying this is sexualizing young girls. The members of Congress want to know if it's violating any child pornography laws. Dr. Bob, let's start with you. What is your take?
Listen, there's a lot of exploitation of girls going on in this film. There's no doubt about it. When you watch the film, as I did, it's painful at some points to watch this. I have heard, this is child pornography. Believe me, when you've worked in human trafficking, you've seen it all. This is pretty far from child pornography, but it's exploitation. And in a sense, Sally, it's a little bit of a reflection of what we've done in Western culture with sexualizing our teens and tweens. And I think this is in many ways no different than when Jodie Foster was in Taxi Driver or Natalie Portman in The Professional. The difference, though, is that now we're talking about it. And that's a good thing. We need to talk about this. We need to somehow react against the sexualization of these tweens.
And Rania, are you seeing disturbing trends both online when it comes to child pornography and when it comes to solicitation of minors? What are you hearing from Crime Stoppers, and how do you think this film is playing into that?
Absolutely. I mean, we'll tell you right now, starting the year 2020, in the first 6 months, we saw an increase, 93% increase on the online solicitation of minors. What we're seeing, look, there's an appetite for this type of imagery. There's an appetite for the exploitation of children. And we have to be really careful the role we play in this, as a society, what we're feeding our kids in advertising, in movies, in commercials, online. And unfortunately, Cuties, I agree with Dr. Sanborn 100%. But the problem here is you can't show the issue and try to teach about the issue by further exploiting kids. And that's a problem. Netflix, the ease in which you can watch this, anybody can consume it. And of course, we've seen on our sides horrific imagery. We've seen the worst of the worst when it comes to the exploitation of children, child pornography, and more. But this is an entree for some people, and that's very, very concerning. There are parts of this film that are very hard to watch, and the fact that it's mainstream really, really gives me pause.
We know kids are getting on social media at younger and younger ages. Dr. Bob, why are kids doing this to themselves, and what can parents do to help?
Yeah, kids do this because it's a reflection of what's going on in our society. And one of the key points of this film is that these girls, they sexualize their dance because they know that they're going to get more likes on Instagram. And so kids love this idea of getting likes. They like approval. And especially at these ages, these teenagers, they're seeking approval. And so for parents, it's just important. One of the things I've always said, just really be in the lives of your kids. And especially as tweens, right? You still have that ability. If you give that up, forget about it when they're teenagers. You need to start early and be inside the lives of your kids and know what's going on. You need to give them your approval so they're not seeking it anywhere else. But I think this whole idea of social media, we're all on it. Our president is on it. Everyone is engaged with social media. And so to expect something different from our kids we're not going to get anything different when everyone else is doing it. But parents just need to be super engaged with them.
Sally, if I can just add quickly, too.
Rania, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to his point, you know, kids, it's even more than just a desire to get the likes. They are wired that way. They're driven to not just get the likes, but to be seen, to trend, to build their brand. And I'll say a recent study was showing 92% of kids have an online presence by the time they're 2 years old. Their parents have shared 1,000 images of them by the time they're 5 years old. This is the culture that our kids are being raised in. So we've got to have early conversations with our kids about what their brand is, how they're defined, what their value is, and what their purpose is in sharing their lives online.
And do you fear, too, Rania, that this kind of a program could desensitize people at home to the problem?
It's interesting because even in the film, when the girls go to give their final dance at the big contest, you know, you see the audience and they're booing and the mothers are just horrified. But by the end of the dance, it turns to some cheering and people are visibly sort of clapping for them. And I think that depicts what happens in society. You know, for me, especially, it was very hard to watch this film, but you watch this stuff over and over and over again. Yes, you do get desensitized. I wasn't as offended by their outfits, by the way, which they're 11-year-olds that are all almost naked, because we've seen it so much now. We've seen it, but the way they were twerking and dancing and gyrating and the movements with their fingers in their mouths was hard to see. But in a few months, you keep throwing that, you know, people keep pushing that down our throats. It's not going to be hard to see. And that's what's concerning. We have to stand in and protect our children. We have to.
Dr. Sanborn and Rania from Crime Stoppers, we're out of time, but it is such an important conversation, and I think you hit on a lot of good points about the importance of open dialogue in families, especially when it comes to social media and young girls. Thank you for your time this morning. We sure do appreciate it. Have a good week.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.